Hey everyone, D here, and welcome to the return of D's Reviews. Yeah, we got a new fancy intro we're playing with today. So
That
exciting.
was awesome.
Thank you, man. Thank you. This was my rush over the past hour to what can I put together? And
Cool.
joining me, as he will be for the whole run of the show, so excited to have him because he's got all that deep comic lore that we're going to ask so much about from Smirking Guns Reviews himself. It's Rob Stone.
And the virtual crowd goes wild. Hey, yeah, we're here to finally return to the world of Daredevil, and it's been a long 7 years. Yeah,
Yeah,
7-ish years. Yeah, so it's finally here, and we're finally gonna talk about it.
Yeah. And I was, as I was talking to Rob beforehand, this is one of the few ones where I took no notes as I watched this show. Really just wanted to kind of take it all in. And then, obviously afterwards I wrote down some opinions and thoughts that we'll kind of get into. But yeah, waiting so much. Marvel has really been up and down, especially with their television stuff. And, I think there was a lot of expectation, certainly from my end, on what this show was going to bring, how much of the original Netflix feel was going to be. Is it going to be light? Was it going to be gritty? Was it going to be Disney-fied? And overall, I think we've got a pretty good return. There's a few things here and there which I will definitely get into. But I think it's also, I don't know, for me at least, it's the characters, it's the actors, seeing them back in their role, seeing Charlie Cox back as Matt Murdock, seeing Vincent D'Onofrio back as Wilson Fisk. I just realized how much I really missed these characters, and I'm so glad that we get to spend some time with them. But Rob, what were your thoughts on our first two episodes here? How did Daredevil land for you?
I mean, just to talk about build up or whatever, right? I didn't me. Anybody out there who knows my channel and how I usually operate, I didn't watch the trailer. I didn't watch anything for this because I didn't need to. As soon as I knew that everybody who was all involved, I was in. Even when they were talking about how they had filmed a ton of the show and restarted, I was still in, because to me, as much of a warning sign as that usually is, when you find out that it was basically to do it right, tells you that it was probably pretty Disney-fied, which is kind of scary, that we could have gotten something like what I have not liked out of Disney Plus for a little while when it comes to, well, a lot of their stuff. I don't want to just pinpoint one thing, but I also had zero expectations. I really did. I know what I wanted, but I wasn't going to allow myself to feel that, because if it wasn't, then I would be disappointed. So I just went in with an open heart. Let's call it that.
Good. It's
and I'm
mm-hmm.
Look, it's not the Netflix show, but it's the Netflix show that it's the closest thing that we could get to that. And it was never going to be that. The same, it might have the same actors, but we've got the creators and writers and directors, and all that's changed too. But from the heartbreaking opening to the angry ending of the second episode, I was just so happy. I was just and I kept playing any kind of mental gymnastics where I was like, what about this? What about this? Can I hit this? Can I go at? I was looking a little bit for problems that I was going to have with it. And we'll get into more of it, and as we go organically talk about it. But this is what I wanted, even
Yeah.
if some certain events that happened weren't what I wanted. But the characters are all there, the actors are all there. They haven't forgotten. That's one of the greatest parts about this is nobody's forgotten their lines as far as like being those people. Except for maybe one person, but I don't even know if that's really their fault. I think that might be a character, like a change and a shift in in how a character operates.
Yeah. Yeah. I know who you're talking about. Mhm.
But otherwise, I mean, we were live on the Discord, gifing and talking, and I mean, it was usually we have really lively gif exchanges and discourse, but it was mostly everybody just sitting there watching it because there was nothing to say other than oh my gosh. Um, and yeah, I mean, I'm just ready to like talk about all the nuts and bolts of this
Yeah.
because
Well, yeah, let's definitely get into this because there is, you're right. There were some changes. Originally, it was Matt Corman and Chris Ord were behind in the original incarnation of this series. They shot a bunch of episodes. It was a lighter tone than we had for the Netflix stuff, and Disney or Feige or whomever made the right choice to go. We need to reconnect. They had also people weren't cast into it. Some actors were changed. It was like you had your main two, but it was really a different series. And I think, again, they rightfully course corrected and went, let's stop steering away from Marvel Television's entries. Hopefully they will continue with that, hint, hint. But this was a chance to really reconnect and rebring every character. Um, some of the original stuff that was shot, those directors, those writers stayed, and that's kind of the middle chunk of this season. It's bookended by a lot of the changes, and that is Dario Scarapane. I'm probably butchering that. I'm sorry. Who's the showrunner for the show, one of the principal writers, first-time showrunner, which is kind of a Disney thing right now. But the directors of the first episode, who are also executive producers on this, are Justin Benson and Aaron Moorhead. Benson and Moorhead, of course, did a bunch of indie movies early on, including the God, I did this for the Eternal. We did this for a time loop bit over on Mark's channel on Enchantment of Eternity. But they did a bunch of kind of loosely interconnected indie films. But their big stuff lately, of course, is they did a couple episodes of Moon Knight, and they were the principals behind Loki season 2. So big Marvel credentials behind them. However, I have to say that personally, I don't really think I like their directing style. While I did like the fact that they really connected to the old series by bringing back Foggy and Karen, which led to our big initial tragic death. Originally, Foggy's death off screen. It happened between the shows. So coming back and bringing the characters back to kill him at least gave us that connection, which I think was a really important bit. The more they could tie into the Netflix stuff, I think the stronger the series has been. And if I can say anything about the updated changes, having also done a recent rewatch of the Netflix show, their look was magnificent, especially by the time they got to season 3. Their lighting was great. Their choreography was awesome. Everything was very tight, very clear, very consistent. While it still looked like television, it almost had a film feel to it. And that is one thing they kind of homage to. They keep a lot of the lighting stuff, especially with fog and things in background. And I think that was a good choice to do thematically to connect the series. But I have to say that is the one thing that I was really feeling the lack of, is that kind of grittiness. I think there was one point about 3/4 in, I was just like, who the f- is shooting this episode? The camera's all over. I don't have that same it it doesn't have that the same feel. And again, this is Benson and Moorhead coming in, and I got some issues with some of their storytelling stuff. And I really think that while there was so much in the first episode, to me, it was the weaker of the two in the way that it was shot, even though it had that big opening. So, yeah, Rob, let's talk about the opening and Foggy stuff, and anything you want to add on to what I just said. But let's get into the kind of big tragic loss, which basically sets up Matt in this series, which is that opening tie-in. And did that work for you? You're on mute.
First, I want to say hey to Rena, as usual in the chat.
Oh, yes, hi, Rena.
But to go off of what you said, there is definitely a less cinematic look to this so far. To at least a lot of just the regular talking scenes, especially just it really felt like I know what you're saying, especially the way it's lit. And there's a lot of daytime. Daredevil's out in the light in this, and maybe that's as we see
the lighting's a big difference. You're right.
Yeah. Maybe it's because he's in the light. Maybe this is a creative choice. I'm gonna try.
Oh yeah.
To be generous and say maybe it's a creative choice. Maybe after episode 2, as he's born again, that maybe we'll slip back into the dark. But I don't see it getting any grittier. So hopefully they're good at lighting the dark when they get to it, because I did notice it looked a little bit darker than it needed to be at the beginning, especially the rooftop stuff. But I do understand what you're saying about certain ways that it feels. Definitely, like, I'm not gonna say that the lack of grit, the way it's lit, there's a
lack of grit in the way it's lit. Sorry,
but also it's like these people are, I don't know. I don't want to say too much about all that, but to get to the beginning, I mean, that might, to me, just to me at least, my own opinion, because I love story and character, so I can see past a lot of like the problems that I thought, like what we're saying about how it looks. The characters shine through enough for me to see it and ignore it. That won't continue though, especially if there's like a drop off in like writing quality or something. But this is easily like, for Marvel, anything. This might be like one of the top 5 sequences I've ever seen. Because comic booky wise though.
Sure.
For a comic book fan, this is like perfect comic book setup shit. Everybody's happy and it's back together, right? Like, let's say they hadn't written Daredevil in a long time, and suddenly somebody comes back. We're bringing Daredevil back. This is how I'd want that to open up, because it's like, we're back in Daredevil world, and see, here's our characters, and here's the city. Feel all that, and then we're in their little pocket of the world. They're safe in their home, just like it would be in a comic book, as they return and the characters are interacting, and we're getting a feel for where they are now. And then when he gets the phone call and he goes outside, and just that switch of the powers and the ruse. This is such a classic, like, villain ruse of I'm going to start something somewhere else to drive the hero away just far enough for him to realize he's got to get back immediately, because he's not the villain problem or a lot of comic book villains have the what Matt says later on the stand of like perceived enemies.
Right.
And it's a lot of like, and I always talk about misdirected anger of like your failures, your problems, the things that you're upset about your own life, you inflict damage upon other people. And this is the mother of all of that, because we get that last shot of the third season payoff immediately. Bullseye is back and he's coming immediately. And another great way to like to show the shattering of their world and why he is brought low to have to be born again. The fight is one of the best fights. It's so brutal. It's so true to the characters. This is where it felt like, I mean, at least in this scene, it was almost like, if you want to say, was this the nostalgic nod to Daredevil? It definitely felt like it to me. Everything felt right, even though everything was going so wrong. This is how it's supposed to go wrong. This guy would be so meticulous. He's had 6 years to think about this and plan and stalk and figure out the best possible way to do what a lot of these villains do, which is hurt the ones that they love and make you watch and then take you out. That's, I'm sure, what was going on, or, in the villain's mind, is this is what's going to happen until it becomes real. And he has to try to, he's like, oh God, I don't really want to die here. And the struggle between Matt's wanting to destroy this man and trying to have, like, what do I do for my friend, who Eldon Henson has been a favorite of mine for a really long time. He's the heart of the show. He's the innocent. He's the one who's not done anything. Karen killed Wesley. Matt's the devil of Hell's Kitchen. And she's done a lot. She's killed, she's got a dark past. But Foggy is the innocent in all of this. He's the sense of humor. He's the heart. And what do? What do all these shows like to do? They like to kill our heart. I do think that the show will suffer greatly because they had to pick who are they going to take out. Could have been both of them. But so now we're not going to have that balance that Foggy brought. They might try to put somebody in there. I hope they don't. They need to leave that void empty to feel that loss. Don't try to replace it with some goony goo goo person who's just going to be, la, 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 look at me. Even though they kind of already have it a little bit in Gandolfini's kid, which, well, let's hope something comes out of that. But just the way it's just perfect storytelling to me, of like the way that this felt like I was watching a lot of these are based on comics, but very rarely do I feel like somebody ever really brings the comics alive. And Daredevil has always been good at that for me. There's been so many plot lines taken directly into these seasons, and this one is no different as far as how hard Daredevil can go in the comics and how hard it can go in this show. And they did not disappoint. And I'm sorry for talking this much about it.
Well, no, but I'm glad that you're excited, because you are where I really kind of want to be, and I'm not quite. And it's really because while I like the connection, I like the format, I like the idea of everything that they did with the opening sequence. This is just my Achilles heel with a lot of the Disney stuff, because I see it in a lot of the Star Wars shows as well. And that is a feel of fakery, a feel that they're doing stuff on a sound stage or on the volume and not on an actual roof, when they're doing the parkour stuff and they're flying and they're jumping, and even the using of the batons, grapple to swing up or zip him up. It looks like wire work. It looks fake, and that gritty realism is really, I think, a strength that that the Netflix series had, even though it didn't have the grandioseness of maybe the larger Marvel stuff, and they're trying to find it. To me, that's what they did. Even with this whole fight sequence, felt very like, we're going to do our hallway scene. So it's like an homage, but it's not quite there. It's a little overly dramatic. It's a little overly superhero-y. It's a little overly big. And again, while I loved seeing Bullseye back and stuff, and I was like, oh, kind of excited, part of me was also like, it almost feels like the perfunctory, well, let's do the big old Netflix tie-in scene, and we'll bring everybody back, and we'll take those characters, and they'll have that final big thing, and then we can move on to our story. Again, as we know, it was, while it may feel tacked on in my mind, it's because it wasn't in the original conception of the show. And I am, again, glad they made the change. I'm glad they brought Foggy. I'm glad we got to see them together with the Nelson, Murdock, and Paige at the end of season 3. That was what was written on the napkin, that sign. And as they leave, that sign is behind them. I do love that connection. And I'm glad, again, they made these choices. Again, I think it's just a cinematography presentation way. There is a certain, I don't know, again, just fakery. I'm seeing matte lines. I'm seeing green screen backgrounds. I'm seeing volume edges that just kind of pull me out of it. And I think maybe that's just getting old. I'm like, I just want to see him do it in a real place. But all of that aside, we do get into then our kind of big main episode. That is the split. We go into our 1 year later. I was actually laughing, going, now some indeterminate time in the future. And then they actually say 1 year later. I'm like, okay, that's cool. And we get the return of, well, let's just say it, he's the man. It's Vincent D'Onofrio's Wilson Fisk. And we'll talk about Vanessa in a minute, but let's start off with Fisk, because for those that you may not have remembered or caught it, we've actually seen him in the Marvel verse a couple of times now. I had to remind myself about Echo, and then I had to remind myself about Hawkeye, and I loved that show. I actually really liked it. I'm like, oh yeah, he got shot in the face. That's the recovery they're talking about. And then the whole Echo thing and everything, and it was like, okay, because it really feels like this character is more connected to the Netflix than to those shows, which again, I think is a smart choice. But yeah, in case anybody, and maybe I'm the only one, but yeah, we've seen a couple of episodes with the Kingpin already in here. So when they're talking about it's been some time and they've done some things, they are not lying. But yeah, man, what do you think? What you got?
Well, I mean, the first thing, I mean, look, it's him. It's probably the best casting for a villain they've ever done. He brings his presence has always been larger than life, and it's impossible to find somebody, to me, who could, look like the exaggeration that is the comic book Kingpin. It's just, Michael Clark Duncan he's not even really as big as they always film, like they film him like in The Green Mile and everything. It's a lot of, way they shoot you. But there was still that presence, and it still wasn't enough, because you can't do it. You need somebody who can make you feel like he's huge and make you feel small, and that's D'Onofrio. And I didn't know it at the time. I didn't think about it at the time. when they cast him. So he's back. I forgot about Echo too. And when I thought about the moment in Hawkeye, I was thinking about that it must have been an Echo when it was really in Hawkeye, like just like you did, because I didn't watch Echo. And I'm kind of kicking myself just because I want to see D'Onofrio. I kind of don't care about what's going on in Echo. So it's like, one of these days, like, I'll probably watch it on like a rainy Sunday afternoon or something and catch up on that. But
That's about what it deserves. Yeah.
yeah, and he's still here and he's still bringing it. Like, we haven't touched their version of what I guess I would call the heat scene, a little bit. But the other thing I thought was, man, we're all getting old. We're all getting older, folks. He really looks like he's getting old.
That's, there is something about that size difference. He was so perfect when he was initially cast, but you know what? That's a decade now plus.
Yeah, he started this back in like 2014, probably, when they initially started and filmed and blah, 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 blah. So yeah, like 11 years ago. And he was already, I mean, he's older than me, so he's got to be in his 60s, I want to say.
Yeah, I'll have to double check, but that would sound about right.
Or early 60s at least, because if I'm going to be, what I'm going to be this year. But the one thing that I feel like about Kingpin is that the character can be there in the performance and in the presence, but if you don't quite have it in the writing, then you see to me that's where I started to see, like, look, I said I love this. I was happy all the way through, but that doesn't mean that I don't see things. Some things I'm like, and I'm still going to tell you at the end of the day, I'm going to go, so far. But like, it just felt like the writing, people writing these episodes are writing their version of the Kingpin, and D'Onofrio's Netflix Kingpin is trying to like push past it.
Yeah.
The characters that we know are trying to push past somebody else's writing and trying to just say, we know who these characters are, so we're going to say this dialogue. We're going to do these things that like made me go, well, he's just going back. Like, they don't have any better idea of how he would go about this. We're just going to go back to standard blackmail. Like literally like a Tony Soprano though too, where it's not even like that threatening. It's like over a sandwich and it's supposed to be like that totally made me feel like I was watching, like a like a guy that's not as clever or smart, but somebody who thinks they're writing him really clever and smart. And really it's just kind of baseline, like, bad guy. And so I think, I don't know how long, like, is this it? I don't know. I remember this was supposed to be like 18 episodes. I don't know. This is how out of touch I've chosen to be about some of this stuff, is I don't know if this is like half a season and then they're going to do another 9 later.
That's exactly what it is. Yeah.
Okay, good. Because the other thing I would say is, because of the way he looked, how he's aged, I would say this really needs to be his swan song. And even though I think Charlie Cox could keep playing this character for a while, I think this should be D'Onofrio's exit. And even though, or maybe
65
as a full season heavy, I think that he would be great in the back, like, is in event stuff. Whenever they need to pull him, like, hey, we need a New York scene with somebody that's blah blah blah. But I really hope that they give him something in these 18 episodes that they'll do to let him bow out, because it just, I don't know. It feels like when I rewatched season 1, 2, and most part of season 2, I jumped into season 3 and like binged all of that, comparing season 1 and 3 and everything. It's like, what else can you really do with Kingpin now? because they've done the classic hero beats villain, villains in prison working on things. It becomes he's less of a part in that, and they explore Punisher and Elektra in the Hand. But season 3, when they come back, right, it's the I'm going to flip things on the hero and try to take things and get back on top by, finding the holes in the system and the cracks in our laws and the people that are supposed to protect us, like federal agents and cops. There was a big theme of that. So, and at the end of it, I mean, he's broken. He is like, if he wasn't broken in the first season, he is shattered. He is in front of the world. Everybody knows again who he is. And we've seen now he's been on Hawkeye and he's been on Echo now. Now he's in this, and he's doing the very now like modern classic story of Fisk running for mayor, which happened less than a year after this jerk off took office. And that was not by any means a coincidence that they did that.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. The parallels are very obvious in this.
This isn't an old story. Born Again, the one from like the late 80s, that is an old story, but there's really not as much in this to me as there is in the current, like what Fisk just stopped being mayor not that long ago. And so that's all here. So what's next? Like, they're already caught up with modern history. There really isn't any more Kingpin stories to tell. So even though I'm loving that he's back, and he is going to be back to his old self slowly but surely, like everybody else is on this show, I hope this is it for him.
Yeah. Well, and I have to agree, mainly because this show feels very familiar. It does feel like we've tread on very common ground, because season 3 kind of did a Born Again storyline where he's back from the dead after Defenders, and he's cast Matt Murdock aside. It's almost like an opposite for Matt of what he's doing this season is he's embraced Matt, he cast the devil aside. In season 3, he embraced the devil and cast Matt aside. But we still had Fisk rebuilding his reputation, going in front of the crowd, going up against. So the fact that we have him going into being a mayor, as this season does have a certain redundant feel to it. So I do have to agree that I would love for him to do a really big final couple of season I'm the bad guy outside a few special, because right, they said he's 65 years old. He's started, physically you're starting to get smaller. It's just make the most out of what you got when you have it. So yeah, while Matt's kind of reversed and Kingpin is kind of doing a rise again bit here, the one character that is very different than what we have seen before is Vanessa. I can't say I like it as much. I don't think I like the personification, and I think what they're playing with is that she's figured out that maybe it's the allure of danger that she liked more than Fisk, and she's really good at being the head of the families and running things. She's making a lot of money. She's making it all look legit, and maybe she's just bored with Fisk. And I get that from a character approach. But the kind of Fisk-Vanessa unbreakable relationship was something really cool. And to have seen her in this be able to take that persona, but make it evil, like the fruits of the devil, would have been great. But also, couples therapy, I just have to say that their issues are the weakest part of the storyline overall for me. And I don't know if they're just trying to give her something to do or if this is the drama. A lot of that we're seeing more in these middle episodes, especially episode 2, which again was shot under the old ideas, that director, those writers, and all that stuff. So I don't know. What's your take on Vanessa?
Well, again, to not like bring comics back up into it, but I guess that's kind of like what I do, right? So,
Yes, please do it.
well, think about this, right? They introduce her as the thing he wants in season 1 and how he gets her. Despite everything, he gets her. Season 2, I really think that they sidelined Fisk because of jail, and Vanessa kind of gets to just kind of go away. And this is like woulda, coulda, shoulda. This is not how they did it, but this is how I think they should have done it. And I think she should have died in season 3. I think that she should have been a presence in Fisk's life in season 2. I think there should have been like scenes of her going there or scenes with her trying to reach him and him saying, no, but everything's about protecting Vanessa, and a lot of 3 was about protecting her in his relationship, and they get, the wedding and everything. She should have went down. It should have been like character wise. It should have been the thing that really like saw him falling, and now him back by himself trying to figure out like what to do. Why am I doing this, without her, without the thing that I want? Like, there's this ghost in the comic books, not literally, but in his mind. He's haunted by his wife and child that happened. And then there's so many different stories. He had sometimes the son is young and sometimes he turns into the rose, that actually might be a version of this on the show. This at some point, I watched somebody talking about it and they were playing the trailer. And even though I was just trying to listen, I saw a glimpse of somebody who looked like it might be a version of that character, who I would believe in this show would probably be Daniel Gandolfini's character. Just by going off of how he's all into Kingpin. So they've done that in the books. And I just kind of feel like it's better for him to be haunted by her, to me, than to see her become what she never was. She was always like, his decisions, his choices ruined his life with the only people he cared about. But now we're just in therapy so that he can be closer to Daredevil's girlfriend. You know what I mean? That guy that was at the book signing is the same guy that.
Oh yeah, I was like, man, how are they tying this? Because this is starting to get too interconnected.
Yeah. Because why are they really there? It is at least an interesting excuse, because for her, it's like, oh, I thought we were actually here trying to save the marriage when you're still trying to go after the blind man that beat you already.
Honestly, I hope that it's that, as opposed to just, by coincidence, it happens to be Daredevil's girlfriend.
Yeah.
That would annoy the.
Yeah, it would just be terrible. This is his way in, and I think that this will bite him in the ass. Because he's thinking it's gonna give him leverage, but he's gonna lose leverage with the only person that matters. Even though she's taken this like she's not. Well, you want to know why it's so weird to me? I think is because we just came off of Penguin, where Kristen Milioti was running things and we were like, yes. And now we see someone who's an art dealer or runs art shows trying to be a gangster because of him. Oh, she feels kind of like off because he can walk into the room and end the meeting without even doing anything. And she's suddenly really into this. And it's like, that's not really the character. It never has been. And just trying to make her now the like mobster's mole, or whatever, like that's not the right term. The mods,
No,
like
I see what you're saying. I mean, personally, I think that it would have been, and again, a lot of speculation ahead, and I don't want to like rewrite this show before we're doing it. It's just because the personification kind of annoys me. I think if she had been to like while he was down, she took over, but she's really good with it, and that's what she wants. So now she's going to play Fisk. Or there's going to be a dynamic like, no, sweetheart, I'll take care of the business. It's all even. You go be mayor. And start to have a certain kind of dynamic of that, but where she's more, I don't know, I guess she just feels less, and you're right, kind of as a mole, she feels less powerful. She feels less capable, less of herself. She feels like she's just this reflection of what she needs to be. She's filling in a niche as opposed to being like a strong, dark version of the Vanessa that we saw before.
She's never really come off to me as a really, like, she's quietly into protecting themselves.
Mm-hmm.
We need to leave. We need to run.
Right.
Never been, hey, let's stick around and see about making this criminal empire keep going. You know, like it's, to me, it's just too much of a shift in personality for me to believe that she wouldn't just go. Because there was parts in season 3, I'm like, why is she even here still? Like as a character, when I feel like she doesn't really want to be there. Like we know that she's struggling, but like the struggle to me is like a no, I don't know. I don't think they've ever really written her strong enough and made her a big enough presence on the show to justify me like believing or wanting this part for her in this story.
Okay. Well, again, hopefully they will do more with. Again, we're only 2 episodes in for the season, so hopefully they've got a little bit more planned, and we're probably getting a little nitpicky here.
Oh, sure.
And I did love it again. While it did seem a little perfunctory, I did love the sit down between Fisk and Matt, and just kind of a catching up an almost respectful way of moving past and stuff, where it was really kind of like we're almost old friends catching up, except we totally don't trust each other.
And like I said, it's very much like Heat in the I'm going to be who I am and you're going to be who you are. We're going to like, but like, if we ever like, you know, hey, you ever step out of line, the heat's going to be right around the corner. It really felt like somebody really liked that Michael Mann movie quite a bit when they wrote that scene. Cause it's like, again, it is iconic characters, just not like, but only one of these actors is really iconic. You know, it's, you know, Pacino and De Niro and D'Onofrio and Cox, it's not quite that, but it's a nice little nod to that, of seeing two guys, except really playing like this is to me, or I think a lot of fun nostalgia comes into and pokes fun at their own world of like him bringing up getting shot in the head by the person he's trying to mentor, and you know, and this, that, and the little things. That was fun, but again, it just didn't have that same punch that I wanted it to have a little bit. I still think that the writing should be a little stronger here, as far as like this is they're not going to see each other a lot in the show. So, but I think that because of where they're both at, it does kind of make sense that they're not complete, like that they would almost be like work, like people from work, like the coyote and the sheepdog when they clock out in the old cartoon, where they're totally against each other until it's time for the lunch break or whatever. They clock out, they're like, see you, Steve. You know, it's a little like that.
That is awesome. That is a perfect comparative right there. Because it did feel eventually very, very much like that. And if I'm not wrong, this is after becomes mayor, so this would be episode 2. And this is again part of that old original viewing of it. So I think there was a kind of a lighter take to it, not quite as much of an edge. but was it Michael Cuesta? I think directed that episode. And he is like a vet TV director, bunch of HBO stuff, did The Leftovers, did got a couple more of those, but he's got like a slew of HBO premium shows underneath his belt and stuff like this, which is again why for me personally, episode 2 had a better feel overall. And a consistency, the camera choices, some of the angles and things like that, I think just was a little more evocative of the old show. There was felt like a little bit more of a professional eye to it. I do prefer the kind of edgier lighting and darker stuff that the Netflix did show, but to me, this was a lot more just overall well carried through the episode. Dun, 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 dun. Oh, White Tiger. White Tiger, I guessed who it was pretty much immediately without even really having that comic knowledge background of the character, because one, it was the only other hero that was mentioned in the news position. And then, of course, when the guy goes and beats him up and they're looking through the investigators looking through his room, I was just like, and they're going to find the suit, aren't they? There it is. I do like the whole vigilante kind of idea, and I like the bit that people are stepping up because Daredevil hasn't been there. And he didn't even have his mystical amulet. Okay, look, we don't need that stuff. That is the dumb, stupid. Nobody should know about that. And what? You're the judge? Look, he wasn't vigilanting. He didn't have his mystical amulet that gave him the powers of the moon every third day. No. The costume is as far as you get. The mystical amulet, you got to keep that on the DL, man. That's a personal thing that we find out later. That's not advertised. That's not what you talk about to your lawyer. Sorry, that's the shit that really pisses. That's the like, okay, you're going too hero-y. You're going too comic booky with stuff like that. And in fact, I don't even think that would look at being good in the comics.
No.
Yeah.
No, but I was okay. I don't know if you were there in the Discord when we were talking, and I was on live chat with somebody, and I was when I knew that I was like, okay, clearly this is going to be White Tiger, and I loved that whole thing. That I loved the reveal that like these are cops. They're bad cops, but they're cops.
That was a really cool scene. I did like
really
that.
Like, okay, like really flipping it on this guy. And I'm that person though that was like, please tell me that they've got mystical amulets. Please tell me that this isn't just gonna be a guy punching people in a zebra outfit, even though it says White Tiger. He looks like kind of like a character called Phantom X from the X-Men universe.
Sure.
But I was like, please just don't, if he's just beating people up, please don't let him just be a guy beating people up in a costume. Please give me those mystical amulets. I really want magic and shit. Okay, you guys, I don't need it all over the place. I just wanted him to like, and when he goes, I didn't even have my magical amulets and nothing. I was like, yes. Even if they never show it, at least now I know that they exist, that they were making the attempt to make the character the way the character is, and it's the original Hector Ilea, the original White Tiger, not any of the other ones that we like. Sorry, these are the reasons like I nerd out on certain things.
So yeah, but I just want to jump and be like, now don't get me wrong, I love that he has a mystical amulet.
Oh yeah.
I don't love that being something his lawyer tells the judge as a reason why he's not. I mean, yeah, he would spute it out to his lawyer and stuff. I mean, I get that. That's fine. You're right. I do love that he has it.
Yes.
I was just like, this is not a legal defense.
Yeah. So, no, anyway. Absolutely. No, it's but I also really liked, speaking of that scene, I don't know. Is he listed in the main credits? He's not where I am. He was on the Big C, this actor. He was also the main actor on the show called Manhattan that I really liked. who's playing the lawyer.
Okay.
I also really like Clark Johnson, who's on one of the best shows of all time, Homicide: Life on the Street, as the investigator. Yeah, I'm just always gonna be
Says
like this.
Cherry, yeah.
It's just me bringing some class. Like they bring some class. They get some real decent, good character actors for these parts. They've done that throughout like Netflix's thing, so it's really good to see us getting some really authentic looking actors for the role. Like street. They people. We all look like regular people instead of like Hollywood actors.
Mm-hmm.
And I just wanted to say I appreciate that as well. Plus the unknowns in this, for the most part, other than Gandolfini's kid, I was like, I like all these people. I like seeing a bunch of people I don't know and mixed with the people I do know.
Yeah, and I gotta say, I do love that. I mean, first, I love the actor playing Cherry also, but the fact that he was retiring when all that stuff went down at the beginning. So he finds out who Daredevil is, that he's Matt, and then he comes back as his investigator because what are you going to do when you're retired? You just get bored. But now he has that little extra eye in, so he can have those references. That is a little change that I did actually like. I did enjoy that.
I don't want to derail it too bad since we're talking about actors, but we didn't get to really. I didn't talk about Bullseye, the actor who played Bullseye, and
Oh
him being
yeah,
back.
please! I got to see more of him though.
Oh, I hope he comes back. I still hope he comes back. Because even when he just doesn't really say anything, he was like such a pleasant surprise. He's not the Bullseye I thought I wanted, but he's the Bullseye that I liked. I'm glad that we got him. I just wanted to bring that up really quickly because that payoff to bring him back and go and do that arc of like about talking about justice and everything. Anyway.
Well, and they can start to play into the adamantium and the magnifications and such, which they totally imply because, of course, he throws him off the top and then Freddy Krueger's back up. But we got that implied at the end of season 3. So that is, and you're right. I would love to see him back, obviously, against Daredevil. But even if he becomes, this is where I really think they need to use some of these background villains they've set up.
Oh, yeah.
And again, stop killing them and bring them into one and then don't kill them. Let them get captured again so you can use them as cards, man.
Yeah.
This is the fun thing. If he popped up like against Hulk or something in some small bit, or I mean, again, I'm kind of aiming for the moon there, but even as like a Moon Knight encounter at some point, Moon Knight versus Bullseye.
Well, what they need to establish then is they need to establish the bar with no name. The bar with no name is a place where villains go to drink and hang out, and
the villain pub.
Yeah. And what they need to do is establish that place and have it in something so that they can have a reason to keep these characters alive so that we can like have that place for them to go to. Like when somebody needs a guy, you go, you go, but don't go to the bar with no name. Just like the heroes have their own place too. Yeah, we need to keep the street level regular ass villains alive, all of them. Otherwise, yeah, this is not like we're trying to create a world where, like in Spider-Man: No Way Home, remember it's when Peter actually starts saving the villains. Like we're trying. What do you mean we kill them? You kill these people? How are you ever gonna like help people? We're actually supposed to help everyone, including the bad guys. So hopefully we can embrace the Disney. I mean, it should be easy. It's Disney. They like to, it should be like
you've got a cadre of actors, man. Use them. They want to be used. That's why they got into the Marvel.
So yeah, definitely keep him around.
Okay, so and obviously the whole background we have with the dirty cops, and that's what's going to bring Matt back in. We get our final big scene where does he kill those guys? There's a lot of blood in places, and he shouldn't because that's not himself. That's not who he is. I don't know. My wife and I had
that one guy over pretty hard onto his head.
Yeah.
It really looked like he died. I was like, if he's alive, then, because I mean, remember, Matt used to be really careful. There'd be
Mad and
like,
yelling.
he'd always
Yeah.
say, "No, he's still breathing," or I only busted this. I can hear he just has to go to the hospital, and even in the beginning, like he's listening to Foggy's heart while
Yeah.
he's beating Bullseye. Um, quick aside that I guess would be, I guess he had to decide to. The only thing I was thinking about in that beginning scene that didn't sit quite right with me, and maybe it'll just make sense if I say it out loud, was he struggling with leaving Bullseye to get Foggy out of there? Was the only thing I was thinking about. Was like, could he have like grabbed Foggy and zipped over, like, I know it's heavy. He's a person on those things, but like,
Mhm.
I think I'm just trying to find a way that they could have kept Foggy alive.
No, and for a police bar and the ambulance to be that far away, no, that's where I'm saying there was a certain melodramatic, overly emphasized to what this is going to be
Oh yeah,
that I think kind of pulled it out of the realism. I mean, like what you said, the actors are doing the best they job with the material that they got.
yeah,
And the setup that they're doing. And I think, I mean, Deborah Ann Woll is always, on point. But yeah, part of it was like, this is taking him a really long time to die as we're going through this big fight. And what is the priority? And obviously we have that Matt's mad and needs to stop Bullseye, and that's the big fight and so on, and that's the drama and everything. Yeah, again, I'm just gonna kind of at this point just go with it that was their setup, and any quibbles I have with its execution, I'm just gonna kind of put aside at the moment. Though I do agree, man, killing Foggy is a wrong move. I think I hate it when they want to bring up the drama so they kill one of the characters. I think there's
yeah.
better ways to do it.
And honestly, is see, because it's just you. The reason he had to be the one to die, I think, and because comic wise, it should have been Karen.
Sure.
Foggy's always there. Foggy's always there. I'm sure that they've killed him in the past. I haven't read every issue of Daredevil, folks. But it just felt like it would be an all man show without Karen. Like it'd just be all guys again. So it's like Vanessa's the only, like, there's Vanessa. I guess it's not quite true. Vanessa, he's got his new girlfriend and everything, but you still need that touchstone, and you still have to kill the heart.
Yeah, and in the show, Karen is the better character. While I love Foggy and I don't want him gone, they have done more with this character. Deborah Ann Woll has done a lot of bigger things with this character.
Oh, sure.
That I think if Foggy steps aside, he's going to be missed less than if you don't have Deborah Ann Woll's Karen Page. And
yeah, and you have to accept, like I've said, and I even said in the last thing that we were talking about with Captain America, where I've accepted that the MCU / television division is not going to do everything. Mm-hmm. So in this universe, Foggy dies.
Right. So
yeah, there was another moment. This is how caught up I was so early, though, man. Is when he zipped up after Bullseye onto the roof, because he was in the hallway all stabbed up. And I'm like, it didn't occur to me that he could just go out the window and zip up there. So when somebody landed on the roof, I went, Spider-Man! Because it was all flippy and the way he landed. I was
sure.
Spider-Man's here. That's how it, like, I was so sucked in already.
That would have been a move. That would have been a move. But then he would have been able to save Foggy.
Yeah.
And
yeah. But that's how sucked in I was, man. I was just so caught up in the world. I was like, it could happen. I turned into that. Like, and that's that's the difference. And we want to like talk about the difference between this and a lot of other things that they've been putting out, right? Is I haven't been sucked in by any of them, hardly. Not since like WandaVision, not since like Loki. Those couple of things, those fully pulled me in.
Yeah.
Not just the story, but the characters, the actors were great. But a lot of the stuff, man, it's just eh. And in this, even Hawkeye, as much as I actually like Hawkeye,
Yeah.
this was another thing that just zapped me in all the way through and didn't let me go. I was needing that from something, because these days I've been watching stuff kind of like, oh yeah, Severance is great, but it's once a week, and I spend so much time thinking about what we're going to talk about it, and that it's become more than just the show for me.
Right.
It's like, and since we're doing these on your channel, I get to relax a little bit of my brain.
It's nice,
And I
isn't
get
it?
to
You
come
just
in
get
and
to
just
show up.
to just go. So it just, I needed this show, and I didn't know I needed it. And
Yeah.
I think also the themes for this show are big, because I mean, it's not just Matt being born again, it's the villain being born again. And with everything that we're dealing with right now, and the comparisons to Fisk and Trump, and this is how I was talking about it, is like, you would actually, if you had a choice between a supervillain like Wilson Fisk and a wannabe like Trump, I would want Fisk to be in charge.
Because
Because
he's
Fisk is smart.
capable.
Fisk is actually smart,
Yeah.
and wouldn't want to blow up the whole world because he lives in it, and other people he cares about live in it. And so he would think pragmatically about things. He would actually make decisions that would look like he's helping, but still, and he might be, but he'd be helping himself too. He knows how to work, like the way that, right, like regular ass people have, this isn't a real person. Regular ass people write this villain, and we have a real villain, and he's actually more dangerous because of his lack of intelligence and lack of all these things. And I just hope that he doesn't watch Daredevil and go, my guy, we could learn a few things from this guy.
Yeah, it's the Dunning-Kruger presidency is what we're dealing with right now.
Also, like BB Urich.
Yeah, that was a fun little bit, I have to say, because I was seeing BB and I was like, I didn't notice, but I noticed after that, then you're seeing Urich on the stab cards.
And she
when
had
they're
the
doing
gut
all of
to
their
go in there and face him and have to go, he was a good journalist. I really liked him. Right before I broke him, So
that's a good Fisk there, man. Nicely done.
Yeah, don't ask me to do it on purpose, then it'll suck. It'll sound like this all of a sudden.
Yeah,
if I don't think about it, I'm usually better.
Yeah, no. I know exactly how that goes. But yeah, this was I did appreciate the kind of parallels with Trump that they did. Obviously, the way this was, when this was written, when this was shot, it's more dealing with this first presidency. They couldn't really get much out of the second, though it does make it feel all the more timely. And you're right, it is one of those things where we as audience expect this type of individual to be planning, to be intelligent, to be figuring things out. It's the Palpatine, effect, is in order to become emperor and maneuver all of these people, it's got to be layer upon layer upon layer upon layer of planning and such. And in reality, we get an egocentric narcissist who just everybody look. I didn't think that America would fall as easily as it has, is what I'm trying to say right now. And it's kind of a little shocking that not more people are like, dude, the Emperor's naked, man. It's exactly how you had this show. People are just like, woo, he's going to get it done because he seems like a guy that gets things done. Like, well,
yeah, Daredevil's not around, so
you know, but see, Fisk would have the intelligence to when to go, well, why don't I get up and just make sure they fix this pothole? I can wave all the things and get it done. That's like the intelligent stuff. That's not what's happening now. And unfortunately, everybody makes those things. And I know we're getting political, folks. I'm sorry,
no,
but the show has it in. I have to say.
So, what did you think of the last bit, though, of the first episode, where usually the iconic moment of the hero would be at the top of the building with the lights looking down on his city, and instead it's the hero looking up at the villain in that same kind of way of like Fisk has finally done it. He's got the city, but it's like it's like a hero shot for a villain. Sure. I thought it was really good.
No, I like the composition. I thought it was great. You know, part of me was like, they're not actually looking at each other, right? Because I think the building he's on is like, 12 stories up. He'd just be this tiny little figure down there. But I did like the composition. I like the thing. That is one of those where it was like, I like that they're using the color for Daredevil and they got the red. To me, I'm also just like, yeah, but that should just be a neon street sign. And it actually feels like a separate red light that they have specifically on him. Again, I'm nitpicking right now,
so,
but
yeah.
I did really like the composition, and I did like that setup, and that they have that reversal right there. It gives them interesting places to go.
Here's a random question.
Bring it.
Gauche. I was just thinking, like, a Daredevil costume wouldn't be that hard to put together, but is it gauche to go to like a con as Daredevil, but not as Daredevil, just as Matt Murdock? So you just basically walk around with glasses and a cane and some messed kind of ruffled hair and a halfway decent suit. Do you think that's
no, because again, it's if you're doing the costume bit, I guess it depends on how you try to pull that off, really, ultimately. I don't know, do you have like the costume underneath where it's partially pulled up so you can kind of see a little side bit, or like how exactly? But no, I think you can get away with that because it is a comic character. It's like you could go as Bruce Wayne, which is just a guy in a suit.
Well, I guess I just mean it's like, because I guess as long as you don't pretend to be blind while you're in the costume, because then it just looks.
Yeah.
If you go method about it, if you just dress up in the costume and walk around like normal, and everybody's like, "Oh, hey, you're Matt Murdock." Yeah, hi. But if you're going like this through the con, I don't know. Sorry,
I'm probably not qualified to answer that question.
Yeah. Sorry, I'm not gonna do it. I just want.
No, I mean, it is interesting because you expect to talk like Batman if you're dressed up as Batman. You expect to embody everybody else that you are in costume as.
Yeah, I think I could go method too much.
Yeah, I don't know, but then again, I do silly voices when I do readings also, and maybe that's more than some people want. So. Like I said, maybe I'm not qualified to actually say. Well, I think we covered anything. Were there any last little bits, Easter eggs, things that you wanted to touch on that we didn't get to?
Again, I think they're gonna do something with Gandolfini's kid. I feel like they're setting something up there. I just don't know what.
Mm-hmm.
I hope it's worth it.
Yeah.
That's about it. As far as Easter eggs and everything, like I said, neither of us took notes, and I was trying to pour my brain like, what did I miss? What did I miss? And it's just, mostly just talking scenes with Karen, and like we weren't there for each other, and
Right.
we should be now. It's all about, like, so much of it was about watching it fall apart and then slowly bring it back. I did really like his investigation and how it led him to those cops. Like the idea of like him trying to not be who he is, and just by hearing all these stories and getting White Tiger involved with White Tiger, and knowing, and then the whole thing about the vigilantes and the rule of law.
Yeah.
That's gonna be, that we heard several times in this episode. That's gonna play into. That was also part of that comic book thing, was him running for no more heroes in my city. So I think it's good. That's going to get more intense. The cops with the Punisher tattoo.
Yes, that was the one thing that I wanted to touch on, because obviously we do see Punisher eventually later this season, and anybody that knows Punishers knows that cops are not Punisher, and the Punisher is not a cop. So
Yeah.
I'm curious if he's going after the cops when he pops back in. Very curious, but those are yeah. I'm really, I want to know how they're going to play with that idea.
Yep. I think that's about all I got.
Yeah, good. No. I'm glad that you hit that one, because that was one that I did want to bring up. I thought about it earlier and didn't write it down. So thank you for your brain. All right. Well, everybody, thank you so much for joining us live, Rena and Woodrow, here in the chat. For everybody joining in the archives, this is D's Reviews. Much like Daredevil, we're born again. We're back. We're going to be here every Wednesday talking about each new episode, 6 p.m. Pacific, 8 p.m. Central. And then we will be covering Andor when it drops later next month. And then, of course, on Fridays, you can catch me over on this guy's channel, Smirking Gun Reviews, as we discuss season 2 of Severance.
Yes.
So be sure to like, subscribe, hit the bell right below as you see it, and then jump over to Smirking Gun and do the same so you don't miss any of those Severance videos. What else you got going on there, Rob?
Besides Severance and this, well, we did our Captain America Brave New World video together that dropped, and what I do is I usually will make a bulk of like some comic book content and then release it all like a week later on. And so we got a lot of like comic book stuff on there. We just got Wolverine Revenge, Ultimate. It's a lot of Wolverine. But if you like comic book content, come over to my channel. We got plenty of it coming all the time. And we're going to be doing a lot more stuff the more and more time that I have to do it. And we're still working on something. Still working on something. And when we're able to finish it, we'll be putting that up too. So
yeah. Oh, and also lastly, I will be back over on Enchantment of Eternity with Mark and Alyssa this Tuesday to talk Mark's #1 Star Trek episode of all time. It's a good one, folks. Really, really powerful. I'll give a hint. It's a first season episode of a show, and it kicks ass. All the ass. Not a common one for any show for a season 1 episode to be amongst the best, if not the best of all Star Treks. But this one pulls it off. So come join us Tuesday night, 6 p.m. Pacific, 9 p.m. Eastern, over on Enchantment of Eternity. And it'll be a fun discussion. So I think that wraps us all up, folks, tonight. I don't have an outro video, so I'm just going to say goodnight. Thanks so much, and we will catch you all next time. Take it easy. Bye-bye.
bye.
Ta-da!